Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Rainey. Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome to How Now, the show where we talk about how to live in the now. Again, my name is Kim Martin Raymond, and I'm excited to share this space with you as we talk about how to live in the now. Again, the title of this show is Amen Ashe, How We Give Praise. And I'm excited about the guests that I have here with me today because they are essential to my own personal spiritual journey. And so I'm excited to have them here to talk about how worship looks for us now. In this time of pandemic, we have seen so many churches unable to have people come and congregate, and people have been finding new and innovative ways to conduct their praise and worship services. And some people have really tapped into their spirituality as a result of this pandemic and this time where there's a lot of introspection going on. And so, we want to open the platform to be able to talk about spirituality, to talk about religion and what it looks like now and what it's going to look like going forward. And so I have with me two very, very special guests, like I said, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves because I believe that it's important that as we connect with ourselves and love on ourselves and just really begin to have that love affair with ourselves, that no one knows us better than we know ourselves. And so it's always going to be customary that my guests introduce themselves so that way their perception of themselves and how they want the world to see them is what resonates. And so I will start off with my first guest. This is Bishop Dedric M. Avery, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. Bishop?
Hello, I am Bishop Dedric M. Avery. I am the pastor of the Salt and Light Truth Center in Decatur, Georgia. I am also a healer, a coach, and a business consultant to CEOs and business owners. I just love the community, and I'm glad to be on the show.
Yes, it's such an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Welcome again to How Now. And our next guest is Minister Zema Lovefire, and we'll go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Peace and love. I am Zema Lovefire. I'm a spiritual minister. I'm also a coordinator for the Ascension Gatherings at Salt and Light Truth and Empowerment Center. I am also a master energy practitioner, as well as the founder and director of the Indigo School of Light Institute for the Golden Age.
Lovely, lovely. Again, welcome Bishop Avery and Zema to the show. And just a lot's been going on. A lot has been going on prior to the pandemic. I know with the Salt and Light Truth Center. And I'm just going to allow Bishop Avery to talk a little bit about what's been going on there first.
Well, we are certainly a progressive ministry. We are non-traditional, non-denominational, a lot of things. Certainly, before the pandemic came forth, we were planning a lot of progressive activities to try to embrace the community, as well as, introduce our congregants and the community at large to a fresher perspective of spirituality. And that's how Minister Zema and I formulated our energies to create a place where the non-religious but spiritual could come and have an experience as well.
Wow, I see, and that's something that's innovative. That's something that I don't think that we see too much of, because I know we have so many traditional worship services. And I know when people see the term non-denominational, they try to put that in a box as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm sure there's a little bit of a misconception as to what that is, and to or that seems to be the catch-all for those who don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be identified with Baptist, or don't
Sure.
want to be identified with other Protestant religions. So it's interesting that you came up with that concept. What was the push to go in that direction?
Well, the push to go in that direction is for me to reconcile with my own soul as a leader. I was in the traditional system of Christianity for many years, but I was in an internal struggle and a battle because I knew better. And I knew a lot of things. I, have a very decorated past in studies, and I'm a initiate of the Kuan Yin Society. I'm also studied Islam for about 20 years or so. I've been in every spiritual house you can think of, and I've sat under some very prolific teachers of spirituality. And being at a place where I have the opportunity to control the narrative, I had to create an environment that was even nurturing or speaking to the intentions of my soul, just to break away from the traditional settings and knowing what a lot of the traditional teachings and the dogmatism has done to our people. Instead of abandoning it, I decided to stay in it to help people come out of it.
Awesome. Awesome. And that's wonderful, because when you're called into ministry, we're called in for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for us to be obedient to that call. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's wonderful that you've soul searched and thought it best to follow and be obedient to what you were being called to do. So that's very admirable, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm sure is exciting for you to actually see unfolding, to actually see it manifest. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been manifesting over time. How do you think that your parishioners are viewing these changes and these things that they're seeing happening?
I think those that have been committed to the process are are benefiting from it. Those who were already dealing with commitment issues, it didn't matter if we did it or not; they were still going to be what they are, uncommitted.
Right, right. And then it started to look different. And then the pandemic hit, right?
Right? Gave everybody an excuse not to come now.
Wow, wow. So you saw a shift there too in the pandemic. And I think that quite a few churches have seen that, and that's where a lot of the innovation has come in. We've seen a lot of churches where they're doing services, with big screens outside. They're doing a lot of conference calls, or they're doing a lot of Zooms. And I think that we've seen some changes there. That, like you said, attendance has been different. In some instances, they've seen some upticks because people are able to worship in the comforts of their home. But then we've
Mm-hmm.
seen some, like you said, that have taken a break, or have broken away from the church, because of the fact that they don't feel the obligation to be there, because they don't have to physically be in there. And what are your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts about that?
Well, I always say don't use the pandemic to get out of your commitments and obligations. People are using the pandemic for their conveniences. They can use it as justification for not attending this or going here, but they're at Walmart, they're at Kroger's, they're at Sam's. They're all over the place. But when it comes to being in a spiritual center, a lot of times, because we have so many people who are controlled by the external influences that are trying to keep people separated and those things. And sometimes it's kind of frustrating demonstrating as when you know certain truths, you still have to be humble and sensitive to the conditions and mindsets of the people you're trying to serve, and not have a standoff, but people will receive proper information that they can make the best decisions. So
Yeah.
certainly it has impacted the church. The traditional settings are really in crisis now, because people don't have to come. You know, they don't have to. And people associate, if I don't come, I don't have to give any money or those kind of things. I don't have to support financially. And it's really a lot of dynamics. That's a whole nother show on mindset of the traditional parishioner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's it as well, because you have some people who are in the mindset of, okay, I'm home now, and now I can, have some introspective time, and I can do some soul searching. But it's important to have that connection, as you said. It's important to be able to have that platform, or that space for people to ask the questions, and there has to be that willingness to do that. There has to be that draw. And so, how have your services been looking as of late as a result of this pandemic? I know that we had a sheltering in place at one point where we could not congregate at all. Is that still the instance with your church?
No, we started back in July of this year, 2020, and we have had a alternate service format. Every other Sunday, we come together, giving those who want to come back and fellowship an opportunity to do that, and for those who are still a little more sketchy or concerned about the COVID situation, we still have the phone line that we use. I think that there may be the mechanism or modality that we kind of look at for going forward. Every organization, whether it's spiritual or sectarian, they would have to find new ways, more innovative ways to do things. But then at the same time, we have to realize that this probably won't be disappearing anytime soon.
Right.
Because even once we get the so-called vaccine, those things, that's a whole other show as well. People will feel a little more comfortable in their minds that things are okay, but there will still be a phobia from this point on. Our generations, particularly who are adults now, from the millennials on up, we will always have a phobic type of aftermath, and people won't necessarily trust crowds or trust being around other people, even after inoculation.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you said that, and we talk about how we're going to navigate, and that's going to be important, because just like you said, this pandemic is not going to end. There's not going to be a switch that's going to switch over as soon as 2021 starts, and it's just not going to be. We're just going to start all over again. Everything is going to be quote unquote back to normal. There's no such thing. And so, yeah, it's going to be important for us to be able to connect and to worship and to praise in innovative ways. And that's where we get into where you had an opportunity to meet Zema. And so I want to give Zema an opportunity to talk a little bit about her experience prior to the pandemic, and what's been your take on things right now.
Well, for me, I'm always busy, so that didn't change. The thing that's kind of interesting is I actually became more busy during the pandemic, and saw a huge increase in my clientele. And if I had to sum it up, I would say it's because for the first time, maybe in most adults' lives right now, this is the first time they were able to find some free time to do some self-care. And so me also being someone who facilitates different types of healing retreats, it was very interesting because the amount of attendees started to actually triple.
Right.
And all of a sudden I was on the road. And it was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy, you know, where we may have had small groups of 10 or 12, we now have upwards of 30, and then we have a wait list because we can't take everybody who's trying to sign up. And so now it just blew up. And basically conversating with everyone, it really came down to the fact that these were people that always wanted to do self-care. They always wanted to go to a retreat. They always wanted to spend more time in nature. You know, we'd be up in the Georgia mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains, things like that. And because of their work, you know, because of their normal everyday family life, they finally, you know, had some free time. And I've actually seen people show up more for themselves at this time. So it's a little bit of a silver lining in there.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, it really is. You know, a lot of people is able to take themselves back, if you will, during this time and be able to do more inner work.
Okay, so you think it's more of a fact that, you know, like you said, self-care. A lot of people have had an opportunity, like you said, to be home, to you know, do a little bit more of introspection, to take a little bit more time for themselves. But do you think it was just that self-care aspect, or was some of it that spiritual aspect, or do you think it's a combination of both?
Well, I think it's a combination of both, because if you, it's the domino effect, right? Because it's like if everybody's home, chances are you got somebody who keep your kids so you can go do some self-care stuff. I mean, it's all a domino effect. You know, it's the lack of time and effort and freedom, you know, to be able to do certain things. So I think it's a balancing act, you know, in the first place. So in the midst of everybody kind of trying to scramble and find some type of normalcy, which this is our new normal, you know, and it's never going to be completely the same as it was before, because like Pastor Avery said, you know, people now have some fear about, you know, being in groups and, you know, showing up in crowds and things like that. So there's going to be a reinstatement period, if you will, that's going to have to happen once we start to plateau, you know, with COVID, and, you know, the numbers can start going down. You know, we really haven't had a decrease in numbers. It's just that our media outlets haven't been talking about it as much anymore. It's almost like everybody's getting bored and kind of want to move on and get over it, but the numbers are still spiking. So it's kind of crazy. Like, you have to go out of your way to be informed now. The news aren't really throwing it in our face as much as they used to, but the reality is that it's still here, and this is our new normal for a little while.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because I think I've also seen a lot of people, you know, are starting to look into crystals and candles and spiritual baths and shadow work. There's been an uptick in that as well. A lot of people are now, you know, running and seeking alternative ways to praise, because there's a fear, and they aren't kind of clear on, you know, how to deal with that, you know, so they're meditating more, and we're seeing a lot of that. And what has been your take on that?
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me, because, you know, what I'm saying is, now you have all this free time. Let's break it down in even smaller terms. Like, the reality is this: when the pandemic hit and they introduced the pandemic, what was it, where everybody got like $600 a week if you were doing unemployment. The average person, I'm gonna tell you how a lot of people just came up.
Right.
A lot of people wasn't making $600 a week.
Right.
They were making maybe between 3 and 4 on average. So here it is. you're going through struggle, you trying to manifest a certain kind of lifestyle, and because you work in 2 jobs, you got your kids, you don't have any free time. Now you've been given an opportunity to be able to focus on some other things that you've been meaning to do but didn't have the time to do, and here you got this extra $600 a week, which is more than what you were making. So now not only is that more than what you were making, but you also don't have to put the same amount of energy into being able to take care of your household needs. And now there's also extra funds,
Right.
maybe an extra $150 to $200 that you now have in your pocket every week. So what that does is that allowed a lot of people to be able to get their own personal business up and running and be able to study and focus and not have to worry about the rat race of paying bills for 29 weeks. Okay.
Right.
So you got 7-8 months of time to do you and not have to worry about clocking in on somebody's job. Listen, if you got that deal and you didn't do something special with that during this time, you really missed a very beautiful door that was for a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, they say, oh my gosh, I've never been in this position before and I'm going to take advantage of this 100%. And so who's doing retreats? I'm going, and people haven't really allowed that fear. And out of all the hundreds of people that I started doing these retreats back in June, up until now, and we've worked with hundreds of people, and it's very interesting because one of my clients today, we were talking about how not one single person came up sick with COVID of all of these gatherings that we've been doing, not a single one.
Wow.
And I think that says a lot. And it's deep to me because when we look at like, I don't know, Trump rally gatherings or whatever, a lot of people seem to come away with being sick and having COVID in these rallies. Wherever there's like a group of negative energy, seems like people walk away sick.
Wow.
But when people are kind of grouping together more on spiritual healing terms, it seems to be a little different. So I mean, I'm just saying vibration is what it is, and I for myself can clearly see the difference in vibration when people are coming together for self-care and healing as opposed to people grouping together to continue to feed rhetoric into the world.
Yeah. So like you said, you did, and that's a wonderful segue because you talked about healing and coming into those types of spaces, and you both have created a space for people to be able to come in and really focus in on themselves and on taking their spirituality and their worship and their praise to another level. So Bishop, tell me a little bit more about that combined service that you have, that what you and Zema have put together.
Okay, I want some of those deep questions too that you gave Zema. Now you put me in the church. It certainly is a starter kit to higher levels of exposure to spirituality. When you get into the spiritual, you have to understand that this is a new paradigm that's we're being transitioned into. We're leaving the Piscean age. In another 40 years or so, we'll be in the Aquarian age, and these are many of the transitions that are going forth. And we're leaving the believing model to the knowing model. And the spiritual aspect is when you know. The faith aspect is when you believe. And knowing that and being ahead of the curve, I probably won't even be here doing the actual change of the age, but we are certainly the forerunners who are pushing people towards understanding the power of knowing and the power of the inner work that's necessary. And what Zema and I have come up with is just kind of a sample. You can't get it all in that one service, but we kind of create a very unique environment for those who are tired of the dogmatism of the church or the church aspect, and they want something that will support the universal aspect. That's where the Kemetic spirituality and all those other things that kind of come in place, that we give people more of a universal feel, that, you know, get exposed to the concept of meditation. People get exposed to the Yoruba or African traditions of honoring the ancestors and bringing us back to what made us powerful as melanated people, and not necessarily trying to Afrocentricize it, if I can make that word up,
Mm-hmm.
but to point to what all of that symbolized, which is that universal oneness with the Creator. And so we're, you know, she's done an excellent job in bringing in fantastic speakers, and it's really fulfilled my vision in that regards. And we're trying to, you know, just kind of incorporate some African customs or traditions that had a symbolic power that can help us have a really reformation in bringing that sense of community back.
Yes, so it's really trying to create a platform for people to come in and engage and gain knowledge, and that's something that I think is important. Even when we talk about going through any type of crisis in our lives, where it starts off with that fear, then we get to that space of learning and gathering information and you know, being able to retain some of those things that are going to help us to eliminate some of that fear, and then finally going into that space of growth where we can
Well,
take
see, you
Mhm.
have to understand that this pandemic season is impacting different communities differently.
Mhm.
Everybody's not impacted the same way. The church culture is impacted differently because they are embedded with fear. The steeple of the church is fear. So everything they do is the devil gonna get you, or they're scared of this, or God is gonna strike you down. And it's so those kind of mentalities, the church is really freaked out. Whereas other people who have been centered or just kind of wanting to kind of pursue that natural, organic relationship with the Creator, they have a whole different experience. They even see the pandemic differently. They see it from the way you're supposed to see it. But then too, when you talk about the crystals and the spiritual thing, um, sometimes things have to be fatted before it becomes a real mechanism of modality.
Mhm.
We have a lot of people who are just, it's just real popular to
Right.
get into the crystals. It's real popular to burn your sage. It's real popular, as if these things have just happened.
Correct.
And like we were just presented with these no, this has been here forever. Our ancestors were already using these modalities. And what has to happen is we have to have more of a controlled environment so that people can learn how to properly use these things. They're going to the Ye's Botanicals and
Mhm.
all these different places, and it's like it's a Walmart of of
Right.
spiritual things, and they get the candles and all this stuff. And you know, you mess around and mess with the wrong stuff, you call something in you don't need to deal with. You
Right.
know, so we have to be taught how to handle spirituality. We have to be taught how to do these things correctly so that we can have a flow in the spirit, just like our ancestors did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
That's powerful, and this is exactly what we need to see in our culture and in society, you know, moving forward, just trying to figure out where those safe spaces are. And so, you know, with that being said, I want to talk now about personally how you all are living in the now. That's something that I ask all of my guests at the you know, towards the end of the show, where I ask you about how are you living in the now? What are you doing as a means of coping through some of the things that are you know have been happening, or you know some of the uncertainty that we're seeing? What are some nuggets or some things that you can share with our listeners? And we can start with you, Bishop.
Who are you asking the
You
question?
can
Oh,
start with you,
Zema?
Bishop. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, for me, I used this time, particularly during the quarantine, the shutdown. It allowed me to get more centered and to get more into my studies, reviewing my study material, going back and review things to kind of get resurged or revived. And being that I live alone, it was a sanctuary for me. Being that I had peace, I had no other forces to contend with, no other energies to compete with. I was able to focus and really get into my growth and development. At the same time, I was also a candidate and initiated in the Men Heal Thyself rites of passage program at the same time of the pandemic. So I was also learning and being reviewed and was exposed to concepts through the Queen of Fool program to how to set my altar upright and the things I need to have, how to make my kitchen a sacred kitchen, my meditation, my affirmation, my spiritual baths, just everything that helped me become more potent spiritually and be prepared to lead people in understanding to get through this period of time. So certainly it gave me an opportunity to rearm and get my weapons and everything together so I could be stronger and more potent.
Yes, and as a spiritual leader, that's something that's important. You said something very profound because you said that, you live alone and that your space became a sanctuary. And for so many
Yes.
people who live alone or, it's been like a prison for them. And
Yes.
so to be able to get to a space where you're seeing it as a sanctuary, where you're seeing it as a place where you can plant seeds and continue to grow, that's so important and vital for people to know and to change that mindset.
And as you said, it's about creating an environment that's conducive to growth and development. It's just like a plant or anything else. It needs the right environment.
Yes.
So many people are trying to make spiritual transformations with the wrong environment.
Yeah.
You have alkaline intentions, but your environment is acidic. And we have to be in a position where if we can make whatever that sacred space, some people just a closet, some people it's just their bathroom,
Right.
wherever you could go to create that sanctuary that will give you a place of refuge. In my bathroom, I have a thing I got from Family Dollar. It says, "My Refuge."
Yes.
I said, boy, you better go, Family Dollar. But it reminds me of the intent to create that type of environment. And when you do it, and it's really within the maturity aspect of it, because most men, if they have their own place, it's a bachelor pad. They use it for the wrong thing. But when you're growing and you're maturing and you're ascending, you know that you use it for your sanctuary, and that those who come into your home, you have to go through a vetting process that they are going to contribute to the peace of your environment.
Mm-hmm. That's fabulous. That's wonderful. And like I said, that's something that I think it's important for us to do, is to create that space, to create that atmosphere that you're talking about, to be able to develop and to grow, and to also keep those connections to spaces where you can ask the questions that you need to ask, because there are going to be things that are going to come up that people are not clear about, and they're going to need that direction. And I think that's what you provide in the Salt and Light Truth Center, for those who are here in the Atlanta area. But before we get to that, I want to ask Zema, how are you living in the now? What are some things that you're doing as a result?
Well, the first thing is staying present.
Yeah.
Because with everything going on, it's very easy to want to skip into the future and bypass all this. I made the joke with some friends about how it kind of seems like they are ready to kind of skip over Halloween and skip over Thanksgiving and get right to Christmas, end of the new year. Let's get into 2021, because everybody kind of wants to forget 2020.
Right.
especially if it's been a lot of hardships for you. So staying present, staying positive, doing my daily affirmations, just staying prayerful, staying in my mindfulness. Also, one of the things that I did too was, and still do, is taking advantage of opportunities to also stay present. Like, for instance, back in March, when everything kind of first kicked off, I did Ramadan, so that I can begin to work on me and really, stay centered. Okay, we're quarantined. This is a good time to fast and cleanse, and get more into my spiritual self. So going back to what you guys were saying about the safe space, one of the things about spiritual awareness is, if you can create a safe space within yourself, anywhere you go, you are safe, right? So when we begin to work on feeling safe from within, then we know we're always safe without, because vibrationally, you feel safer, and that energy actually transforms any type of unsafeness that's around you. Okay. So that's one thing. I also did, I'm a big fan of Deepak Chopra. He had a 21-day abundance. And Kim, I think I invited you into that. And I did that right towards the end of Ramadan, and invited some other people in, and you were one of those people. And, that really was amazing coming off of Ramadan. And then from that point on, just making sure to stay in my awareness, and staying focused on being present, spending time in nature, not getting cabin fever is important. Okay. And so just spending time in nature, walking around, being next to water. I've been to the beach a handful of times since the pandemic has started. So just being in nature, being around water, getting fresh air, walking, all of those kind of things are so important. Especially if you've been in your house so much, even the little things, going in your backyard, or even sitting on your porch, if that's all you have, do that, and I think if you start there and, doing a little something every day, I always tell people, do a little something every day towards bettering yourself and your situation, whether that's reading for 5 minutes, writing a paragraph in your journal, creating some affirmations, or finding some online that you can print off. YouTube has an amazing assortment of motivational videos that I love, motivational videos for men and women in the morning, for when you're trying to get through a rough time, when you feel like you just don't have anywhere to turn. There's so many motivational videos that I highly recommend that people listen to. Put your headphones on. Sometimes you need to be able to hear that I am wonderful, I am great, I am beautiful, I can do whatever it is that, is on my heart, and being consistent in that, until, as Pastor said, where you can go from a place of believing to knowing that you are those things, and staying in that space of positivity, because positivity will get you through so much. What you say, you get more with honey than you do vinegar, right? Right. And that's even with yourself and your experiences. Give yourself that honey and that sweetness, that you expect from everybody else. The more we learn to love and nurture ourselves and give ourselves the things that we expect out of everyone else, we can begin to be the best versions of ourselves.
That's awesome. It. We get to a space of healing. That is wonderful. Okay, so at this time, I want to give you an opportunity to let people know how they can get in contact with you. Those who are in the Atlanta area, if they would like to come and visit you, Bishop Avery, can you give us a little information about how they can contact you and how they can come and worship with you?
We're at Salt Lake Truth Center, 2622 Snapfinger Road, Decatur, Georgia, 30034. Our website is sltcempowermentzone.com, sltcempowermentzone.com, and you will find all the other information that you need to contact us.
That's it. And that's and for those who are out of town, they can also check the website, and they will find out how they can join via phone.
Yes.
So we want them to have an opportunity to come and experience the Salt and Light experience. It's a wonderful place of growth and just knowledge and just such a beautiful space, period, energetically and also. We definitely want people to check that out. And Zema, how can they get in contact with you and some of the things that you have going on?
Yes, I can definitely be reached through social media, Facebook, Zema Love Fire, ZemaLovefire. Same thing on Instagram. You can also see what I'm doing with the school as well at www.theindigoschooloflight.com. If you're interested in any holistic products or, booking a session, or if you're yourself interested in being a part of the Ascension gatherings that we do over at the Salt and Light Truth and Empowerment Center. So yeah, I'm easy to find. I'm very easy to find. If you need to call me, what's that? 470-242-1659. So yeah, so that's how you can reach me.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you both so much for being with us today and giving us, an opportunity to start the conversation that's necessary for us to figure out how we're to navigate in the now and moving forward. And that's something that's so very important to our existence, so important to how we're going to navigate moving forward. So again, I'd like to thank you all for being with me. And we hope that you all will join us for our next episode of How Now. And until then, we wish you peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.